A body hits the jungle canopy at 200 miles per hour. Michael de Guzman, chief geologist, company loyalist, the man whose name was on every assay report, is gone. Fell from a helicopter over Borneo. 3 days before the biggest bold discovery in human history was supposed to make everyone rich. Except there was no gold. There never was. And somewhere in a glass tower in Calgary, the men who built this lie are already on the phone with their brokers. Rewind, 1993, Indonesia, the island of Borneo, a patch of jungle so remote the nearest road is 4 hours away by boat. A small Canadian mining company called Bre-X Minerals has staked a claim on a site called Busong. The company has 11 employees. Its stock trades for pennies. Its CEO, David Walsh, is a failed bond salesman who declared personal bankruptcy 2 years earlier. Nobody is watching. That's the point. De Guzman files the first report, gold traces, promising, not remarkable. Then, suddenly, remarkable. The samples come back richer, then richer again, then obscenely, impossibly rich, 200 parts per million, then 400, numbers that make veteran geologists put down their coffee and read the report again. By 1995, Bre-X is announcing the largest gold deposit ever found, anywhere, in human history. 71 million ounces, worth, at market price, $6 billion. The stock goes from pennies to $280. Pension funds buy in. Mutual funds buy in. Goldman Sachs calls. The Indonesian government calls. Suharto's son calls. Everyone wants a piece of Busong. Nobody goes to Busong.
You have to understand what gold does to people. It bypasses reason. It always has. Men have crossed oceans for it, started wars for it, died in deserts for it. And in 1996, the story of Busong hits the financial world like a religious experience. Here is a jungle. Here is a Canadian nobody. Here is the biggest gold strike since the Klondike. The analysts write glowing reports. The journalists write breathless profiles. David Walsh, bankrupt 4 years ago, remember, is now on magazine covers. Bre-X is the hottest stock on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Fund managers who skip the site visit rationalize it easily. De Guzman has a PhD. The assay reports are thick with data. The numbers are consistent. Why would anyone fabricate this much paperwork? Because the paperwork is the product. The gold was never the product.
Here is how you salt a sample. You take rock cores from the drill site. You crush them. You add gold, river gold, cheap gold, jewelry gold, to the crushed material before it goes to the assay lab. The lab tests what you gave it. The lab finds gold. The lab reports gold. The lab is not lying. You are. De Guzman had been doing this since at least 1993, possibly longer. Every sample, every report, every number that analysts put into their models and pension funds used to justify buying $500 million worth of stock, all of it reverse-engineered from the conclusion backward. The conclusion being, make the stock go up. The machine ran for 4 years.
1997. Bre-X has a problem. To actually mine Busong, to put shovels in the ground and extract the gold that doesn't exist, they need a partner, a major mining company with equipment, capital, and operational infrastructure. Suharto's government helpfully arranges one, Freeport-McMoRan, one of the largest gold mining operations on Earth. Freeport sends its own geologists to Busong. The geologists are not looking for gold. They're looking at the existing samples, verifying the methodology, running their own parallel cores. Their cores come back nearly empty. Freeport's chief geologist writes an internal memo. The language is careful, scientific, But the meaning is not subtle. Something is wrong at Busong. The memo goes up the chain. Freeport calls Bre-X. The call is not recorded. But 3 days later, 3 days, Michael de Guzman boards a helicopter over the Borneo jungle. He does not land with it. The official story? Suicide. De Guzman, facing exposure, threw himself from the helicopter at 2,400 feet. The body, badly decomposed when found 4 days later in the jungle below, is identified and returned to his family. Except, de Guzman had 4 wives. None of them knew about the others. He had been diagnosed with hepatitis B. He was, by all accounts, a man with exceptional capacity for maintaining parallel realities. The body is almost unrecognizable. The identification relies heavily on documentation. Some investigators note the body shows injuries inconsistent with a fall of that distance. Nobody is ever charged with anything related to his death. The Indonesian jungle keeps its secrets. May 1997. Freeport releases its findings publicly. The independent audit confirms it. Bre-X samples have been tampered with. The gold deposit, all 71 million ounces of it, does not exist. Bre-X stock opens that morning at $15. By the end of the day, it is worth pennies. $6 billion in market value evaporates in 8 hours. 80,000 retail investors, teachers, nurses, retirees, people who read the magazine profiles and believed in the jungle dream, lose everything. David Walsh issues a statement expressing shock and devastation. David Walsh, it will later emerge, sold $45 million of his own Bre-X stock in the months before the collapse. The timing is difficult to explain. He never faces charges. He dies of a brain aneurysm in the Bahamas 14 months later, age 52. The money, his share of it, is never recovered. Here's the part the postmortems always skip. Bre-X was not a sophisticated fraud. Salting samples is the oldest trick in mining. 19th century prospectors did it. There are textbooks about it. Every major mining company has protocols to detect it. The protocols require sending your own team to verify the cores before you build a $6 billion investment thesis. Nobody sent a team. Goldman Sachs didn't send a team. The pension funds didn't send a team. The analysts writing buy recommendations didn't send a team. Because the story was too good. Because when people want to believe something, they find reasons not to look too closely. Because the financial system is built on trust. And trust, it turns out, is the cheapest thing to manufacture. The SEC launched an investigation. So did the RCMP. So did Indonesian authorities. The investigations produced very little. The people who sold at the top, the insiders, the early investors, the executives with the perfect timing, mostly kept their money. The 80,000 retail investors did not.
Here is what happened to the people responsible. De Guzman, dead in a Borneo jungle. Cause disputed. Walsh, dead in the Bahamas. No charges filed. John Felderhoff, chief of exploration, Walsh's partner, the man who signed off on every geological report, acquitted of all charges in 2007 after a 10-year legal battle. He retired to the Cayman Islands. The banks that promoted the stock? Fined. Lightly. Moved on. The analysts who wrote the buy reports? Promoted in some cases. The pension funds that lost their clients' retirement savings? Settled quietly. The Indonesian officials who smoothed the regulatory path for a fraudulent company never investigated. The jungle where the gold was supposed to be? Still there. Still empty.
Here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. Busong produced exactly 0 ounces of gold. But the people who ran Bre-X extracted, in total, somewhere between $100 million and $200 million in personal wealth from the operation. Not from mining, from stock sales, from the gap between what they said was in the ground and what was actually in the ground. The product was never gold. The product was belief. And belief, properly packaged, properly timed, properly sold to people who wanted it to be true, is worth more than any deposit in any jungle on any earth. The helicopter never found a black box. The jungle never gave up all its dead. And the Toronto Stock Exchange quietly updated its verification requirements for junior mining companies the following year. Too late for the 80,000, right on time for the next one.